when it comes to the progressives in their bill, let's think about it, right? They have all kinds of stuff in there. There's so many things packed in there. It's like a progressive wish list. And they tried to put immigration in there. The parliamentarian said it can't go in there under reconciliation. But what is a financial thing that I don't know, I don't think the parliamentarian has ruled out. And it wasn't even in discussion upon the initial Bernie structure of the bill, which was going to be $6 trillion, is student loans, right? Now, look, you might think, oh, he's just saying student loans because he has student loans and that's all he cares about. He just wants something for him, blah, blah. No. I'm fine with paying my student loans. I have a plan to pay them. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing to pay them. And credit to Biden with the restructuring of the public loan forgiveness. I actually got an email today that some of my previous payments, which weren't going to count, might count now because of what he's done with the revamping of the system. But student loans aren't in it at all. And that just, it's got to make you question, right? The progressive side of things, they have a lot of mantras, right? And they have a lot of talking points and they have a lot of slogans. And one of their slogans is, working families this and working families that. And we care about working families this and that and working people this and working people. That's why the Working Families Party is such a thing. It's all about working people. When you look at it, not every benefit they're looking to give is necessarily working people, and they're not necessarily including working people in these programs all the time because I guess they consider people who work white-collar jobs who make a little more money not working people. I don't know. I think it's just because of the way they want to market it. Yeah, Bree, it does. It does. It's a slogan. But here's what's interesting. They keep claiming, no, we want to elevate working people. We want to bring working people into the middle class. We want to give everybody a middle class life. And I understand historically from a progressive standpoint, especially with regard to FDR, I understand why progressive ideology and progressive policy does contribute, especially when you're talking about labor unions, why it does contribute to a middle class lifestyle and bolstering the middle class. On the other hand, you got to be suspicious when the biggest bill that they have doesn't even touch student loans. Why do I say that? Why do I say it? Well, here's why, objectively why. When you had the first progressive wave, you had the GI Bill. You had a lot of corruption in that. You had a lot of redlining. You had a lot of racism, which caused a lot of problems. But when you had suburbanization, you incentivized roads, you incentivized the car companies, which then incentivized the hiring of automobile workers who were then unionized, who had living wages, and middle management who had good wages and long-term jobs. And you incentivized people to go to school. You backed their mortgages so they could buy a house. You were implementing programs that actually helped people come from the working class and elevate themselves to the middle class. And a lot of people in my generation were beneficiaries because our parents were born into the beneficiary system of parents who were benefactors of the highway system, the mortgage system, the GI Bill, all of those things. And that is largely what helped the second wave immigrant class of this country to move from the working class to the middle class, right? Jews, Hungarians, Italians, that whole group, the remaining Irish who were still in the cities, they were able to elevate up and out into the middle class with those programs. And those programs were discriminatory, right? We know they were discriminatory. They held back certain ethnic groups and certain racial groups and benefited others. But they did move a significant portion of people from the working to the middle class. Now, here's the interesting thing about student loans. The Brookings Institution, I was reading this week, the Brookings Institution had an article that stated that African American millennials were far more likely to suffer under crushing student loan debt than their white counterparts. Now, we know that's not 100% applicable, right? Because I'm a white person who didn't have the means to get college paid for. So I took out loans and I had to subsidize my education, or pretty much pay for almost my whole education with loans. And so it's a huge payment every month that restricts my ability to be more of a consumer, restricts my ability to make more long-term investments, restricts my ability to buy a home, and all of those things restrict my ability to have a positive impact on the economy. Now, there are millions of people like me, but African American people like me are at a far bigger disadvantage because far more of them have loans. And the article said, according to the Brookings Institution, they've just descended into the middle class, and their standing in the middle class is fragile because student loans are such a crushing burden on them. And that goes for anybody, any color, any creed. If you came from the working class, one of the biggest mechanisms in the late 20th century, early 21st century for working class people to rise to the middle class and to advance themselves was by achieving an education from the university or even graduate school. That's one of the biggest ways that they were able to advance themselves forward. So if progressives are so in tune and so about advancing the middle class, why would they not include student loan debt? If you took student loan debt away from people who have just elevated themselves and their families have helped to elevate them from that working cycle to the middle class, and if you remove the burden, just like the GI Bill or the mortgage back, remove burdens of buying homes, remove burdens of going to college, if you remove that burden, then you would have way more disposable income, a whole generation of people who could reinvest and invest and purchase, just like we had in the mid-20th century, which created this boom, which created this bolstered, robust middle class. They could do that, but they're not even looking at it. It's not even in the conversation. And you have to ask yourself, why? If they're so about elevating people up, why wouldn't they want to elevate people up by way of one of the most obvious mechanisms available? So, at the end of the day, I gotta tell you, I feel like modern progressivism in a lot of ways, they know they can equalize down, but it's much harder to facilitate up, right? They can equalize down. They can keep spending more money, taking it from people in higher social strata. I'm not saying the rich shouldn't pay their fair share. They should. And there's something to be said for Bernie's movement, for the progressive movement. We have a growing inequality gap in this country economically. And it's part of the reason we have the problems we have. The rich are getting way too much of the money that's out there, and everybody else is fighting for the scraps. That's got to be fixed. You got to put a bigger tax burden on the wealthy. You got to put a bigger tax burden on corporations. I'm not against forms of spending that do that. But one such form of spending, because when you get rid of student loans, you're acting like we're just going to get rid of student loans, just like wipe them off the books. No, somebody's got to pay for them. The government's going to pay them for you. Well, we can use the taxes from taxing the wealthy to pay for that. And that would be a real middle class benefit, especially for people just rising up to the middle class who have done well for themselves, who have decided to persevere despite not having the money, despite not having the means, despite maybe working side jobs, despite their parents being at work, despite them being home alone when they were kids because they didn't have a primary caregiver at home because both parents worked, or only a single parent home, the parent worked, like I came from. They elevated themselves. And instead of rewarding them or helping them or solidifying them, they're saying, no, you're going to miss the cutoff. By the time you reach peak earning age and you have your kids, because you've waited to have kids for so long because you're doing the responsible thing, when you have them and you reach peak your peak earning is not going to qualify for the free childcare. It's not going to qualify for the free college. It's not going to qualify for all that, but it's going to come out of your check, though. So are they really looking to elevate the working class up, or are they looking to equalize us all down? Look at any communist country. Any communist country, the people are not living this is the other thing people have an issue with. Right? They think that if you just print the money, give everybody $1 million, they think that everybody's going to walk around living a millionaire lifestyle, right? That's the problem we have right now in society, right? Everybody has extra money, so there's not going to work. There's high demand. There's lack of labor. Because if you give everybody $1 million, then $1 million isn't worth anything anymore. So you're not going to live a millionaire lifestyle. And any communist or socialist country that you look at, they don't have everybody living a upper middle class lifestyle. They have everybody living a lower class lifestyle, because the only way to make everybody equal is to equalize them all at a lower standard of living. There's not enough money to go around in just the way that economics works to equalize everybody at a higher middle class standard of living. You can only equalize everybody at a lower end standard of living. And so when people ask, what's my issue with the progressive thing or all these extra entitlements or et cetera, expanding the welfare state, these are just some of the general. And I know you can get into the nitty gritty and analyze point by point. And I'm happy to do that. I think we need to do some kind of human infrastructure bill. But I hesitate when they just say, no, we got to just spend a ton of money here. We just got to do it, because I feel like sometimes they're a little bit idealistic. I think they're well-intentioned. I think they truly believe they want to do the right thing. But I think they're a little bit misguided sometimes in what we want to be incentivizing, what type of behavior we want to be incentivizing, what type of achievement we want to be awarding, what it's going to cost those who are trying to make the steady climb up, who have persevered and are the most hardworking, talented people trying to climb up, especially in traditionally discriminated against groups who have finally clawed their way to a certain level. We are kind of missing the ball on some of these debates with how we deal with that stuff. And it's just something to look at. It is. And speaking about this modern, further left, this modern progressive wave that we are in the midst of right now,